guys, my name is Rachel, and in this presentation I'll be discussing a major example of bias and power corruption within the U.S. court system. So I'll be going over the Brock Turner sexual assault case. This case becomes nationally known not just for the crime itself, but because of the judge's controversial sentencing decision and that revealed deep inequalities in how justice is applied based on privilege, race, and social class. So in this video, I'll first summarize the case, and then I'll explain how bias and power corruption appeared during the court process. Then I'll connect these ethical issues to chapters 4 and 5 of Banks's Criminal Justice Ethics, as well as Leverett's Devil's Knot, which explores fairness, moral judgment, and abuses of discretion in the justice system. So then I will do a case overview. So in January 2015, Brock Turner, for those of you who don't know, he was a Stanford student and an athlete. He was caught sexually assaulting an unconscious woman behind a dumpster outside of a fraternity party. 2 witnesses intervened and stopped the assault. Turner was in charge of 3 felony counts of sexual assault and faced up to 14 years in prison. However, in 2016, Judge Aaron Persky sentenced him to only 6 months in county jail, stating that a longer sentence would have had a severe impact on Turner's life. Turner served only 3 months before being released. The survivor, known publicly as Chanel Miller, I hope I'm saying that right, later released a powerful victim statement that went viral, exposing the injustice of the case and sparking national outrage. So the public response led to Judge Persky being recalled from the bench, marking the first judicial recall in California in over 80 years. And then I'll go over the bias and power corruption within the case. So this case highlights several examples of bias and corruption of power within the court system. First one being judicial bias and privilege. Judge Persky appeared to show the favoritism towards Turner because of his background. He was a white student athlete at a prestigious university. This leniency reflects class and racial bias in sentencing, where privileged defendants are often viewed as having more potential or being less dangerous to society, less of a threat if they are released. And then there was unequal application of justice. Many legal scholars noted that if Turner had been a young Black or Latino man without social privilege, he likely would have received a far harsher sentence for the same crime. Judges are granted discretion to determine sentences based on mitigating factors. However, as Banks discusses, ethical discretion must be guided by fairness and moral integrity. So in this case, discretion was corrupted by empathy for the offender rather than justice for the victim. And institutional power and influence. Turner's status as a Stanford athlete shaped how both the media and the court treated him. Letters of support emphasized his swimming career and future, which inappropriately influenced sentencing in a way ordinary defendants rarely experience, because they thought he had so much going for him, they didn't want him to lose it. And then in chapters 4 and 5 of Criminal Justice Ethics, Banks examines how ethical decision-making and fairness are central to justice. So he goes over in chapter 4 how he explores the idea of justice as fairness, the principle that all individuals should be treated equally under the law. The Turner case is a direct violation of this idea. The outcome was shaped by the defendant's privilege rather than the facts of the crime. And then in chapter 5, he focuses on ethical discretion and the abuse of power. So judges must balance compassion with justice, yet Persky's decision demonstrated selective compassion and empathy towards the offender and disregard for the victim's trauma. And then Banks reminds us that justice professionals are obligated to act with moral courage and resist external pressures. So in this case, the court's failure to do so undermined public trust in the system. This ties back to Banks' assertion that justice without fairness becomes merely a formality, not a moral practice. And then just to connect it to Leverett's Devil's Knot, They also explore wrongful convictions and the misuse of power within the justice system, specifically in the case of the West Memphis Three. While the Turner case doesn't involve a wrongful conviction, both cases share themes of bias and imbalance of power. In Devil's Knot, the defendants were treated unfairly because of their lower class status and perceived deviance. In contrast, Turner benefited from privilege bias, where wealth and social status led to leniency. So both cases revealed how the justice system often reflects social hierarchies rather than objective fairness, whether it's punishing the marginalized too harshly or protecting the privileged too lightly. The ethical failure is the same. Justice becomes subjective, dependent on who you are rather than what you did. And then, let's see. So the Brock Turner case exposes the ethical danger of allowing bias and privilege to influence judicial decisions. So when judges use discretion without moral accountability, they risk turning justice into a tool of inequality rather than fairness. Both Banks and Leverett remind us that the justice system's legitimacy depends on ethical integrity. And when that fails, public faith in the courts erodes. This case is more than a sentencing controversy. It's a reflection of how deeply systematic bias and power imbalances shape courtroom outcomes in America. Because based on social class, if you are in a lower social class, you're more likely to be prosecuted, or you're more likely to get less justice if you're the victim. I will just wrap it up there. Thank you guys. Thank you for listening. And then I will include my references from Leverett and Banks down below, and as well as some media and case sources. So thank you.